today I'm talking with an educator, an outstanding Gwinnett County educator, Reid Mullins, and he has a family of educators too. His wife was a teacher.
Yes.
Reid was a teacher and a principal and a coach.
And a coach.
His son, tell us what your son does.
He has been retired and was rehired by the county and is now working in the central office and working on the testing program for the county, and is also writing textbooks for a textbook company.
And what is his name?
His name is Emmett.
All right, just
Emmett Reid
name
Mullins.
for you. Name
he's
for
the
you.
junior and I'm the senior.
He's the famous one.
Yeah, he's the big boy.
And your daughter?
My daughter is Penny Mullins Clavijo, and she is now a principal in Gwinnett County.
And how many grandchildren do you have?
We have 4 grandchildren. Emmett and his wife, Mary, have 2, and Penny and her husband have 2.
Are any of those planning to be teachers?
That I can't answer. One of them is already teaching special education in Gwinnett County.
Is she?
Yes, she is working at Rock Springs Elementary, and she is an excellent, excellent teacher. I think she's in her 3rd year.
Oh, that's wonderful. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Her name is Meredith, Meredith Mullins. She's an excellent teacher, and she's learned a lot this year and last year in working with special handicapped
children. That's a real calling.
But
it's a ministry.
It's a tough job. It really is a tough job. And her brother, Michael, has graduated from Young Harris College, and he now helps his dad writing textbooks for the book company. So that's what he does at home. And let's see, Parker, Penny's oldest child and son, had just graduated from Rome, Georgia, Berry College.
Berry College in Rome.
And he is now a minister of music in the First Baptist Church in Rome.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's Methodist Church. First Methodist Church.
Yes, First Methodist, thank you. I'm
I'm
an old Baptist.
Well, the Baptists, you know, they do a lot of pushing you down in water. I'm one of those Baptists. I'm deep dip Baptist.
Oh, deep dip.
Deep dip Baptist.
I'm a deep dip Baptist.
The Methodists just sprinkle you a little bit.
That's right.
Okay, what about the other child? You have one still in high school?
Yes, that is, she went to Georgia for a year or 2. Excellent student, great grades, and she wanted to go into the medical profession. And she couldn't get the classes that she needed at Georgia, so she transferred to Georgia Tech. Just that quick. You know, in my day, if you went to a college unless something happened to you or you were asked to leave or something, you stayed there a long time.
Well, yeah.
But she left because of a class need to make what she needed. So she is now at Georgia Tech. And presently she is working at a hospital in Alpharetta every day.
Well, tell us about your educational background, and the reason that I wanted you to be here especially was to tell us about your family for one thing, and then to tell us about your experiences in Snellville, but build us up to Snellville before then. Where were you born?
I like to tell the story, go back quickly to 1955.
Okay.
And in 1955, I loved to play baseball and basketball in high school, and fortunately I was fairly good. So in 1955, I went to Atlanta to try out with the Atlanta Crackers baseball team. That was the professional Georgia team then in Atlanta. Same as Braves, not as large.
Well, they played where the old Sears and Roebuck building was on Ponce de Leon.
That's exactly right, and that's where I went to try out for a week. And I stayed there a week and worked hard, pitching and shortstop. So my dad came up on Friday and he picked me up, and he said, I jumped in the car. I said, Dad, it's so good to see you. His remark was, how did you do? You know how dads like
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I have a contract to go to spring training this spring with the Atlanta Crackers. And he turned and he looked at me with no expression. He says, what do you want to do? I said, well, Dad, since I have been up here a week, I have decided I do not want to be a professional ball player. I want to go to college, I want to be a teacher, and I want to be a coach. So he said, do it. So that's what I did. And the next month, I went up to, with my Methodist minister in Union Point, Georgia, who was our chaplain for every ball game that we played.
Mm-hmm.
He would come to the locker room, and we would gather around in a circle, and then through him, we would have prayer before the game. In those days, that was good and okay. And with me, it still is. But
It is with me.
so anyway, Mr. Byington was his name, and he took me up to Piedmont, and I tried out for pitching and shortstop, and I got a scholarship in both, and I asked him to put me on work aid also. So I was on work aid for 4 hours a day, and with the work aid, I made 50 cents an hour. Not much, but those and that and the 2 scholarships helped to pay my way through college. And interestingly enough, the girls' dormitory was in a 3-story old hotel that had been converted for the girls' dorm. Beautiful stone building, very pretty, right on the highway going through Demarest, Georgia. And the dining hall for the school was on the bottom floor. So I went down to supper that first night, minding my own business, I thought, and I looked up on the back step where there were about 7 or 8 girls sitting. And I saw one, and I thought to myself, that is the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. So, as the old story goes, I chased her for 3 years, and then I slowed down so she could catch me. But
And
you
so
know,
you've been married for over 50 years now.
we've been married 58 years, and she lived in Dalton, Georgia. But we hit it off pretty good, and I was most blessed with that.
You have been blessed.
I've been
and
blessed.
you came to Gwinnett, though, but you didn't come to Gwinnett when you first graduated, did you?
No, I started out in Social Circle, Georgia. Coached there and taught there for 4 years, and then went to Jackson County in Brazelton, Georgia. Taught and coached there for 3 years, and then the principal and I was his assistant. We won the state basketball championship that year. So I was coaching the girls and helping him do with the boys. So that year after the state tournament, he left and went to Sandersville as principal. So I was asked to serve as principal at Jackson County. So I did that for that 1 year.
That's when you went into administration from coaching.
Yes.
That year.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was coaching and also the principal of elementary and high school. Had it all.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was principal that 1 year, and then I left and I was asked to come to Decula, coaching and assistant principal.
At Decula High School?
So I did that, and I loved Decula, and then Mr. Benefield, our superintendent, called me and asked me if I would be interested in going to Snellville.
That was J.W. Benefield.
Yeah, Mr. J.W. Benefield, as a school principal, and opened the first middle school in Gwinnett County.
Now that's the first time we had a middle school in Gwinnett County.
That's right. No one knew.
Nobody knew what a middle school was.
I didn't know what a middle
What
school
was a middle school?
I went through some quick learning processes.
Tell us what it was.
After I became the principal, one of the first things I did, hired all my staff, made out a schedule, pretty
Now
much.
this was in Snellville, Snellville, Georgia.
1969.
Okay.
So worked out a schedule of an old type schedule, which is put 32 children or 30 children in each classroom. Single teacher.
Yeah.
So had a wonderful PTA. They were so supportive of me that year. And the PTA president came over and said, Mr. Mullins, we've been meeting and talking about your schedule, and we would like to have all the math classes taught before lunch. So that was Ms. Martha Snell, bless her heart. But she was my first PTA person.
Yeah.
I said, you know, that sounds like it would be a wonderful idea. You get your staff together and come over, and I'll let you work on the schedule. They never worked on the schedule. So I said, well, here's the program, here's what we're doing. Now you all arrange it so we can have all math taught before lunch for every child. They worked an hour or two, and they couldn't figure it out, so we didn't change it. I left it like it was.
Tell me who some of the teachers were that first year. Do you remember?
I do remember them. In fact, we still meet for lunch every 3 or 4 months. Those were there when I retired at O'Charlie's restaurant. And the last time we met, that was about 20 years later, we had 36 teachers to show up.
Wow, that's great. Now, was Glenda Norton one of them?
Mrs. Norton. Yeah, I had inherited several. Mrs. Norton, Mrs. Williams.
The Williams for whom the library was named.
Yeah, Miss Ann Williams. She was a sweetheart.
No, wasn't Ann, was it? Elizabeth Williams.
Yeah,
Elizabeth Williams.
Yeah, Ann was different.
Yeah.
Let's see, Mr. Burrell, of course, Herb Burrell came on the next year. And his wife, Kathy, Mrs. Gresham, Mrs. Martha Kimball was a great library aide for me, and she was from my hometown, Union Point, Georgia.
Was she?
Yeah.
How neat that was.
I think I might have been a little related to the family in some way. But that was nice, Mrs. Norton. But we had a good staff.
Do you remember about how many teachers you had? That the school expanded so through the years.
I had 23 teachers the first year, 23. Excuse me. And Mary, I learned that the middle school was much more than what we were doing. And I wanted to be the best in the state.
Yeah.
I really worked hard at that. So I asked the PTA if they would to find 23 substitute teachers for me. I wanted to take my whole faculty to Oak Park, Alabama, and stay 3 days to visit a state-of-the-art middle school. So they approved it, and they did. They got me 23 paras to come in and take over the school. So we loaded them on the school bus and headed out to Oak Park, Alabama.
Man, what an experience that would have been.
And had such a wonderful time. And the principal there was just wide open to us. Just gave us the run of the school. And we learned that they were not departmentalized, but they were team teaching. New concept, team teaching. Well, we stayed there those 3 days, had a great time, came back. And I explained in a faculty meeting one day before the end of the year, I said, guys, next year we are going into a 2-teacher team in the 6th grade, 3-teacher team in the 7th, and pretty much departmental team in the 8th grade. And that will be team teaching, which is new for all of you. Now, if you don't think you can handle that, I'm going to ask you to please resign before you come back next year.
Yeah.
Or ask for a transfer in the county. Because that's the route that we're going. So that's what we did the next year. None of them left. All of them stayed, but we came back the next year and we started team teaching. And we have what's called exploratory areas. Now that was fun. That's what the children really enjoyed. Exploratory would be like this. I said, now, Mary, you're in the 7th grade, and you love to teach social studies. And I know how much you love to teach it, But by Friday of every week, I'm going to ask you to teach something that's entirely different from what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one teacher, for example, say, we'll do roller skating. Yeah, that was big. Another teacher said, I'll do fly and bait casting. We can make flies in the room, if you're familiar with fly and bait fishing. Yeah. So that's the kind of exploratory that we had. And on Friday, we would finish all state required time for teaching. In the last hour of the day, we would go in the exploratory.
That must have been exciting for the children. I bet they were really.
So they had to bring, those in roller skating had to bring their skates with them on Friday.
Where did they skate? Did they skate in the lunchroom?
No, they skated at the church parking lot.
Oh yeah,
The
that was close by. Yeah,
just down the road.
I can see where you could do that.
So they would go down there and skate. And my brother, who taught for me and coached, Coach Michael Mullins, he had a class and he loved to fish. So they built flies and stuff to go so they could go out and fly fish. So on Friday afternoon, that last hour, there was a little pond down behind the police station, which is across the road.
Snellville has changed so much, though. That little pond's not there anymore.
Not there, and there's so many more buildings there and roads cut through.
Yeah, the 4-lane.
But they went out down to a little pond and they would go fishing for that 45 minutes, come back to school, catch the bus, and go home.
Now tell us exactly where the school was located, where the building was.
The building was an old stone mountain granite building, and it was built just across the street now from where Mazawi Dentistry is, across the main highway.
Across 78.
Yes, thank you, on 78. And the Brand Bank is across the road there, and there's a food place there. Let me think.
The Crystal.
Yes, the Crystal, thank you. But it was a good setting.
And it's gone now, though.
Yes, all of that is gone.
It's just gone.
Yeah.
It's a shame that that rock was just so important in Snellville.
It was so pretty.
It was so pretty. Back then we have one rock, is it one or two rock buildings left down there? I know there's one that what used to be part of the city hall, and it's down on Page Street.
I think there is, yes.
On Page.
I'm sorry, but presently I don't recall.
But
one of the most interesting things, though, when I started, we did not have people to direct traffic for us.
You didn't need it, did you?
We didn't need it. But in the afternoon, we needed it. Because I had to let get my buses in the highway to take the children home. Here I am dressed with my 3-piece, you know, looking like
a principal.
Looking like a principal should look, well dressed as I could possibly be. And that first week, I'm standing out in the middle of the highway, 78.
Directing traffic.
Blocking traffic.
Well, what are the big changes that you've seen in Snellville?
Well, that afternoon,
that
first week, my secretary, Mary Ellen Smith, who stayed with me 20 years as secretary, she came into the meeting that I had with the faculty that day. Mr. Mullins, Chief Bob, the chief of police, and the mayor would like to see you when you get finished. I said, I'll be through in about 30 to 45 minutes. Just have them to wait in the office and I'll come by as soon as I get through. So they waited, and when I finished with my staff meeting, I went in there. Chief Bob was sitting over there. We spoke, we shook hands, and really introduced, because we hadn't had a face meeting. And the mayor stood up, who was Mr. Briscoe.
Yeah.
Mayor Briscoe.
Briscoe Field's named for him.
He said, Mr. Mullins, you've got traffic backed up all the way to Stone Mountain. I said, well, I am so sorry to hear that, but I've got to get my children out on the bus, because we have to unload those children and go to South Gwinnett to get the high school students. He said, well, that's okay, I said, I really need a transportation lady out there to direct traffic. So the next week we had one.
Oh, good.
Yeah, wasn't that sweet?
Yeah.
That was so nice.
Well, there have been some changes, a lot of changes, as I was saying. What are the big changes you've seen in schools?
Well, in my day, you could paddle.
Uh-huh.
And I used to tell my teachers, no one, for any reason, gives more than 3 licks.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little paddle about that long, and it was about that wide.
We have one like it in the museum.
Yeah, I've got one at home, by my home.
You should donate it to the museum.
I should do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in giving the 3 licks, I would just tell them to turn it up, and I would choke down kind of like a 9-iron, and give them 3 licks.
Yeah.
You know, they knew they'd had a spanking.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't anything that was bruised like that. But you didn't spank girls.
Nobody spanks anymore, I don't think.
I don't think they can from a legal
I don't think in school or home much either.
legal standpoint. So I tried to, I got a letter several months ago from a young man that was one of my first homeroom classes. My first homeroom class in social circle back in 1959 when I started. And I had been to their 50th reunion in social circle. Dolores and I went down and had dinner with them one night. And most of them showed up. But he wrote me a letter, and he says, Dear Mr. Mullins, I just want you to know how much I enjoyed seeing you the other night, and how much I have tried my best to imitate you in the way you handle school children.
What a compliment.
Really a compliment. And I have tried so hard the same method you use, the no-nonsense method, and keeping them under discipline. And they are both graduated from college now and are doing very well. But see, that meant so much to me, to have that in writing, to see a child that was in my first homeroom that many years ago, 1959, it touched my heart pretty good.
I bet it did. And Reid's wife was a teacher too. Your wife, you've been so involved in education with your wife and your children, and this has meant a lot to the county and to the state.
We have been very fortunate. When Dolores and I got married in Athens, Georgia, she was living in Athens, and she was working for the University of Georgia in the treasurer's office.
And they're #1 now in football.
That's
Go
right.
Dogs.
Go Dogs, that's right. But, you know, that's where she was, and I graduated, and we decided that we'd get married in August of that year that I graduated, and got a job in social circle, and she continued working there while we were in social circle. She was still with UGA. And then I had a call from my old high school coach. You know, when your old high school coach calls you, and you've been so dedicated to them for 5 or 6 years,
Well, I couldn't chew chewing gum and walk, so my coach wouldn't have called me.
No, he probably would. His name was Robert F. Cooper, and he was leaving his job as a coach, and he was coming to Jackson County, and he wanted to know if I would come and be an assistant principal and coach the girls.
Yeah.
So when we moved, of course, I told him I would. They offered me a little more supplement than I was making for coaching.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And our salaries increased through the years, teachers' salaries, and it was a great job.
Tremendously, yeah.
And I'm so glad you were one of the teachers that we had in this county.
Thank you.
Meant a lot. That first, starting that principal as the first middle school. It has
been a lot to me, but Dolores came there. She left the University of Georgia and came to Jackson County and began her teaching.
Oh, that's great.
And
that really is.
But she loved it.
Great career. And thank you so much for doing this.
It's my
and
pleasure.
He's representing not just Snellville. Dolores, his wife, taught in Decula, and we just had a lot of input here, and his children have been all over the place.
Yes,
So
all
thank
over
you
education.
so much. Thank you a lot for this.